Hello everyone, I'm Russell Ray, and welcome to our latest conversation. The topic today is workforce development in Oklahoma and how state leaders are building a new, more responsive system to meet the workforce needs here in the state. Here to talk to us about this very important topic are the leaders of three state agencies. We have with us today Trey Rahill. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission. Brent Haken, he's the Director of Oklahoma Career Tech. And Melinda Front, she's the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Department of Rehabilitation Services. Folks, thanks so much for making the time today. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
You bet. Trey, I'm going to start with you. Help us set the stage a little bit for us. Tell us a little bit about the executive order that was issued earlier this year. It dealt specifically with the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, WIOA. And what did the executive order call for, and exactly what role does OESC have in this new vision for workforce development in Oklahoma?
The executive order came out and basically codified that these agencies that handle the WIOA programming would work closer together. We've been doing that for several months, so I think the executive order was saying, please keep doing that, and formalized that some. But these three agencies all receive federal dollars to administer these programs for the state, and so we share in that responsibility, and we come together and plan how do we work together and find efficiencies across those programs by working closer together. So that's what the EO did primarily, and the role that OESC plays in that endeavor and the broader workforce delivery system is we see ourselves as a convener of institutions that are working in this similar mission space to affect workforce development and serve people of our state, serve the employers and job seekers of our state. So we handle some programs primarily through OESC, and then in some other cases, we're just connecting with partners and trying to facilitate the program offerings through others.
Let's talk a little bit about the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, WIOA. Tell us, can you briefly describe the role your agency plays in WIOA funding and in the greater workforce delivery system?
Sure.
And this question is directed to you and the entire panel.
Sure. So starting with OESC, the titles that we administer under WIOA are primarily focused on developing apprenticeship tracks for employers and working in the reemployment service space, employment services. So it's really on the side of the workforce delivery system at getting people to work, whether it's in an initial arrangement where an employer has agreed to, sponsor and partake in an apprenticeship program. There's also part of the program that we administer that's focused on getting training and other resources to people of our state, to Oklahomans that need that assistance in order to enter the workforce. So that's where we center our focus within the WIOA space. We have lots and lots of other general workforce programming, but those things funded by WIOA are specific to the employment services space.
Brent, how does this apply? How is this funding applied and used at Career Tech?
Yeah, so Career Tech's unique. And about 10 years ago, we actually took on our part, and one of the titles that we serve is with our adult education. And how do we make sure we're overcoming barriers for those adults that don't have a high school equivalency and trying to match that? So we orchestrate 32 different programs across the state with those federal dollars, and the Department of Career Tech really just, our role is to make sure that those programs are providing the most resources they can to the field. So we have a lot of people in this state, 279,000 and counting, that don't have a high school diploma, and that's what we're trying to catch up. We know that high school graduation rate plays a role in that, and we want to make sure that Career Tech, we serve adults and students. So it fits nicely where we're trying to get those people active training, trying to get them post-secondary training that matters. So we have to get that high school equivalency first so that they can get those other great opportunities as well. So that one piece alone kind of ties in with all the other pieces of Oklahoma Career Tech and ties with our core partners on how we can serve Oklahomans. That's really, Trey talked earlier about coordination and what is our responsibility. And our responsibility is to the people of the state. How can we do a better job?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we play a role in this. Yeah.
Melinda, how vital is this funding for DRS?
Oh, it is extremely vital. So our vocational rehabilitation services in Oklahoma, and that's under our Division of Vocational Rehabilitation and our Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired under our umbrella agency of Department of Rehab Services. We joined the workforce system in 1998, which was under the Workforce Investment Act. And at that time, our consumer base that we serve, which are Oklahomans with disabilities, they became a full partner with the counselors that we have that serve them boots on the ground, if you will. And it's very much a partnership between our counselor and the client or consumer seeking a service. And they do have to have an employment goal. So that's exactly how this fits into Oklahoma Employment Security Commission, Career Tech, and other partners that we have in the system. So we utilize a lot of the resources of our core partnerships out of these two agencies and a plethora of other organizations and entities across the state. Under our agency and our counselors, we do have vocational rehabilitation specialists. We have assistive technology specialists. So if a person with a disability needs a type of technology to either live independently, be able to utilize for their vehicle modification, for a home modification so that you can stay in your home, all of those are critical to going to employment, right? And so everything, it's like wraparound services, if you will, for an individual that to be able to become fully work ready. And so it's services and education that we work with our clients with disabilities to fulfill that role.
Trey, this funding is used synonymously with workforce delivery system. Can you elaborate a little on the difference between WIOA versus the workforce delivery system and how they kind of play into each other?
Sure. The WIOA funds are federal funds that go to every state to develop and fund those specific programs that that act was put in place to effect. So you just got kind of a quick summary of what that looks like in each agency. That funding, and broader than that funding in each of our agencies, because our businesses represent much more than just those WIOA programs, we exist as participants in that workforce delivery system. It's kind of if we're looking at WIOA, we could zoom out and see more of just general functions and programs of these agencies. We'd zoom out further and we'd be able to see the workforce delivery system. And the list of partner entities, state agencies, chambers, private business employers, there is a large list of partners that really comprise the workforce delivery system. We see ourselves as participants in that. We do have some responsibility and some authority to drive in that space, which is good. But it's a team sport.
Melinda, Brent, you have anything to add to that?
The whole premises behind WIOA is about community and how do we want our community to look. So we can look at that statewide, we can look at that locally, and actually via the U.S. And it's because it is a national act. And so when we look at that, that's why we have a lot of local partnerships, and then we have our statewide partnership. And I think all we all want is, and that we can absolutely get on board with, is that we want a better community for ourselves, for the people we serve, and so that we're all, we have good economic system, that we're all ready for the workforce and that sort of thing. So
let's take a look at the big picture. When it comes to improving workforce development in the state, what are some of the key challenges that we have to deal with now and start overcoming? Brent, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, so all of us are going to be able to share key challenges. There's so many things that we run into that maybe we wish we didn't run into that when we're trying to get people to work. But the biggest thing to me, and Trey's kind of hit on this before, is communication.
Yeah.
Okay. Where can we serve best? Where can we talk to our partner about what they can serve best? So the barriers that we think about for the user. And I don't want to think about barriers that we have as, an agency leader or even an agency, but what's the barrier that the people see, and what are they running into? And that's what we're trying to mainly focus on. And let's take education. That's our role, is very education heavy. We do training all the way from, adults in businesses to businesses, all the way from our fifth grade students that are trying to learn. So our hope is that we blur the lines of education, and so that we can see that no matter what the outcome is that a student wants, that we provide a pathway for that to happen. So how do we make sure that graduation requirements in the state of Oklahoma are aligning with that opportunity for students? How do we make sure that internship or apprenticeship opportunities are aligned for that student through our education system? So that's similar to what probably all of us are doing, but for me, communication would probably be the biggest barrier, because the people don't know where to go.
What are some of the first steps? Where do we go from here, Trey?
I'm proud, I think, to say that we started the first steps, organically almost a year ago. Just thinking, hey, we should get together and talk about these things. We've got projects in this agency. We've got similar kind of related supplemental projects over here. How can we just be thinking more comprehensively by communicating? I think where we are right now, I still see that education and communication of what's out there is real critical, because I think we've been laying some groundwork as the entities that are intricately involved in this, but I don't think we're anywhere near where we want to be, and that groundwork being realized and make it easier for the people we serve. It hasn't really drastically changed that landscape yet. So for us, that next step, it encompasses a lot of work that we think captures the good things already happening and kind of breaks down barriers that were in the way of people reaching those good things. I think we have to have a lot of that, so that it doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, where you come from. There are options that you know where to go to get, and you know how to utilize them. I think the communication that we've been forming together is to really build that up so that it can be utilized by people. I mean, people will be able to navigate it much better once it exists in that easy to use place.
And using that data. I mean, having the data of what people need, and how do we use that as a collective tool, collaborating together ourselves on, hey, this is something we haven't had a tool before to show collective data. So I think we go from communication to how do we use the resources that are there in planning. So communication is our step one, but we have to figure out along that way, as we're working with other partners and we're pulling people in, and we see an obstacle we're trying to overcome. Okay, what do we need to overcome that? So this is part of step one. I mean, then this is being right here and showing people in our state, whether you're a leader or whether you're somebody that needs service, that people are trying to come together to make a change. And I think that's step one.
Let's talk about the results, the specific metrics that you'll be looking at to kind of measure whether or not this effort is successful or not. What kind of information, metrics, results will you be looking at to determine that?
So we're, as a state, we're not really as measured as much as we will be, but it's coming up in the next year or two that we have to be fully operative through these set performance metrics. So there's measurable skill gains, how a person, if they're employed for a second quarter after exit of our program, fourth quarter after exit. I don't know if your programs have additional metrics. We do not, but okay.
Because Oklahoma Career Tech serves much more than just the WIOA, like we've been talking about. We have follow-up metrics that we use as well throughout the system. So it's really just based off, was there a demand that we met, and is the demand solution, is it working for the end user? So we follow up with everyone that's gone through a program and make sure that they have a good follow-up success rate. And we talk about recidivism in skill centers. We talk about positive placement for students, whether that's a student that seeks higher education or a student that went straight to work. So there's a lot of data that we're trying to gather, and it's the same type of metrics that we're talking about with our system is, what happened with the person that we serve. Yeah, and that's really what we're focused on. Yeah, Trey's got a plethora of data.
Yeah,
his agency.
We get a lot of ours.
We try to use it as much as we can.
We talk a lot about data and the use of data analytics to tell us stuff. I mentioned a bit ago, it helps us to understand what the priority should be based on the impact of a certain program or project or initiative. What I think we're charged with today if we zoom out and talk again about the delivery system that we're building, is we want to meet the compliance needs, but we're shooting beyond that.
At the middle.
Performance. Right. We obviously have the need to meet compliance, but our focus is beyond compliance because we'll roll these metrics. Melinda mentioned several that we're evaluated against, from a federal standpoint, but we want to leave those in the dust, quite frankly. I mean, if that's our condition of just doing business, we don't stop there. We're not done there. And I think that's the beauty of working in partnership and under a delivery system is we all get to say, this is what we think the best could be, and then we get to stack hands together in the beginning to say, if it's not aligning to that, then we need to be questioning.
Exactly. When you look at the synergies and the benefits of this new formalized partnerships, where do you see the greatest opportunity for growth or improvement?
I've been doing workforce development for many, many years. I won't say how long because I'm more the elder one of all of us. But
hard questions.
Yeah, hard questions. I think some challenges we've had is obviously administration really truly understanding what WIOA means and what does a core system. Break it down to usable, kind of like what they were saying earlier in that. What do we want Oklahoma to look like?
Yeah.
Let's really get down to the brass tacks of, let's set, you've got all this sterile compliance, performance metrics, all this stuff right here. But it's like, what kind of community do we want to live and work in? And, when I look at my agency and the individuals we serve alone, and you all serve them as well, but, trying to remove the challenges and the barriers for a person with a disability is huge. And I really appreciate having the partnership with Trey and Brent. And I just believe that in the end, we're going to make this so much better. We do have synergy. We're kind of anxious to see how that goes.
That's what Oklahomans are ready to see, fellas.
Yeah.
We see, let's pull our resources together and kind of what we're doing. I think that's what everyone is ready to see. And so we talked earlier about steps, what are the steps to take? And now we're talking about what are our goals or what are our barriers we're trying to overcome. And some of that's going to be determined as we continue to collaborate. And we know our first steps. What's our goals now to move forward? He talked about a participation rate, what 61 point something percent, or if we talk about a high school graduation rate, or if we talk about our special populations and what they're doing. We have those individual goals. Now we're trying to come together and say, what are our goals as a state and what are we trying to do? How do we make sure that this environment is great for a business to want to come to? It's great for a family to want to move into. And so those are the goals that we're after. We're going to have to put some specific measurement pieces to that. And that's going to take a little bit of time now that we're getting formed. And, the Workforce Commission coming together, we're all going to have to be one team and make those things happen.
And I will say, Russell, is that all three of our programs are in 3 different cabinets in the state, which is kind of unusual across the United States. And I want to say that the synergy that we have working across the cabinet, and we have a lot of support with our cabinet secretaries and trying to educate and help them be aware. Now, Trey, a lieutenant governor, he's already right there. And he has just been a real ally for us from my program, and for me to get to understand what his role and goals are for the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah, from the governor to the lieutenant governor to people in the House and the Senate, we're getting reached out to proactively. Hey, what do you think you're going to need to do legislatively this year? Have you come up against any barriers in your legislation that governs your agencies? Is there things we can be working on to simplify things? Because they know we're aiming this at business, and they know we're aiming this at the workforce.
What do we need to know about the Workforce Commission moving forward? Is there a lot more work to be done in that area?
Well, yeah, I think Trey probably has some insight there as well. So go ahead, sure.
Yeah, I haven't said this much, but I kind of think that we got to that table first a little bit. Like, we started doing the things that I think the state wanted to see because we were learning and hearing a lot from people out in the communities that we serve. We all have people all across the state. So I feel like for the last at least year, probably longer than that, we've been listening to staff and what they're running up against in these communities and when they're serving people. And so we started these collaborations because we heard and kind of knew that that'd be the right way to go. I think what we've seen in the executive orders and the task force coming together, back in January, and then the Senate Bill 621, creating that workforce commission, I think those are similar recognitions to what we had, when we jumped into these roles and started working together. So yeah, very exciting. I think every step that's taken to formalize, the state is going to put an infrastructure in place to really focus on this and make it a priority. That's just helpful to us because this is definitely a team sport. It's not going to be the three of us that pull everything off, So yes, certainly people stacking hands that are outside of our agencies, we're here for that because we'll need that support and we'll need that direction, guidance. I think it helps to have a group that's very intentionally rooted in different industries across the state. That is the job. We don't do any of these programs without employers. And if we only focus on employers of one or two industries, then we're not doing the job. So I think as those structures come into place and they're working with us and they're giving us insights and they're sounding boards for us, I think it only sharpens our product.
I think, I think all businesses are very important, small, medium, large in the state. And I think our programs work very well with that whole, across all of the business, across the state. So.
Yeah. 621, I mean, what it stood up is really just a larger scale of what we were already doing. So, I mean, it's great that it can come together because we need all those voices. Yeah. I mean, it's a big state. There's a lot of people and they need support. And I think what it does is just give us an opportunity to share that knowledge with somebody else that can help bolster that same message that we're sending out. It's like, well, we were talking, as this was going through the legislature, and everybody knows that, it's coming, and there's a lot of talk about 621 and the Workforce Commission, and we're meeting monthly, and we're like, well, we'll keep doing what we're going to do no matter what happens there. And if it works out, that's fantastic because then we can all share the same message.
Yeah. Well, it's never been a more exciting time in workforce development in Oklahoma than now. There are a lot of exciting things happening. I know we have covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't yet covered?
No, just thanks for sharing the message. That's what we want people to know, and that is step one, is just share all the things that are working well in our state and that collaboration is happening, and that's what we want people to know is, how do we get that message out? How do we get input? Reach out to our agencies, and let's see how we can work better together.
Yeah, sounds like formalizing this partnership. There's been a partnership all along, but a formal partnership between these three agencies is going to be the heart and soul of the workforce development strategy in this state moving forward. Would you agree?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, and it's the right thing to do. We could all hit lotteries tomorrow and retire. This needs to continue working without the three of us. It shouldn't really share us.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I mean, when I did hit that lottery, I'll definitely share. I think Melinda mentioned a good point, too, about previously there's territorialism and there's politics and all of these things, and we've kind of disposed of that just because we think collectively it's the right thing to do.
I have learned a lot. I think our viewers have learned a lot. Really appreciate your time today. This has been very informative and educational, very important initiative for our state moving forward. For Trey Rahill, Brent Haken, Melinda Front, thank you for being here. I'm Russell Ray. We'll see you next time.